in a previous video we looked at these two graphs, and the green one is the graph of what I call x minus 2 all squared minus 3, and we saw that, and the black graph is y equal x squared, and we saw that the minus 2 inside the bracket means the graph of x squared was shifted 2 units to the right, and the minus 3 outside the graphic, the brackets show that the graph was shifted 3 units down. Now let us kind of play around with this graph some more, right? Let's make a little adjustment here. All right, and of course the x minus 2 squared minus 3 is of the form a x plus 8 squared plus k, where a is 1 because you have a 1 in front of the bracket, but we don't bother to write it. X minus 2 means the same as x plus negative 2, so h is negative 2. Minus 3 is the same as plus negative 3, so k is negative 3. Alright, ready to play around with the graph. Alright, now the black graph will have it remain where it is. As for the green graph, suppose we have x plus 1 squared plus 1. Where do you think the graph would be? This graph, let's take it as the green graph. Where do you expect it to be? Well, in other words, suppose you're given this equation and asked to sketch the graph, not to take out a graph paper and plot it point by point, or you're given a plain paper, it could also be a graph paper, and you're asked to just sketch this. First of all, you should know the general form of y equal x squared. So given your x and y axis, you should know that y equal x squared is something like this. It would look like this. Alright, in fact, let's draw the y equal x squared in a different color. So you should remember that y equals x squared looks like this. That's your original graph. Then after that, you should be able to look at this and say, alright, it is y equals x squared shifted x plus 1 inside the bracket and then squared. You should remember that this means the tip right here, where is that 0, 0, the origin, it should be moved 1 unit to the left. So you should have a movement to the left 1 unit, and then outside plus 1 indicates a movement of 1 unit upwards. So you shift 1 to the left and 1 upwards. So that new point should be here. So your new graph should look something like this. Alright, now looking at this graph, this is -1 and this is 1, so I expect this tip right here to come here on the new graph. So it's the green graph that we're going to be shifting up. So let's see, this green graph is written as it is, x minus 2 squared minus 3. Let's write it as x plus 1 all squared plus 1. Alright, this is now in the form x plus 1 all squared plus 1. And I said before, the right down at the bottom of the valley of the graph should come here. Let's see if that's really going to happen. The green graph should be shifted so that this point, the tip, the minimum point, should be right here. Let's see. Good. It worked. So, made that. All right. So let me put this back here. Good. So what happened? X plus 1 all squared plus 1 is really x squared shifted 1 unit to the left and 1 unit up. Okay, so you see that. Now that's what we had. Let's make another adjustment. Suppose I want, all right, let's erase these things first before we continue. Don't want the graph paper to be too crowded. All right, now let's get rid of this green graph so that we still have our black graph, the y equal x squared. That's a basic quadratic graph, you know. Let me shift a little bit down. This is a basic quadratic graph. Suppose I want the minimum point right here to be a new graph that is plotted so that it is here. I want this graph. In other words, this is a quadratic graph. You're presented in some test or exam or so. You're presented with this graph and you're asked to write down the equation of this graph. It's a quadratic graph. It has a minimum point located at 2, -2. What would you write? Right, this would be in the form x. This is x squared. Obviously, this is x squared shifted 2 units to the right, so you should have a -2 here. Squared, and 2 units down, so it should be -2. Let's plot x squared, no, x minus 2 squared -2 and see if it would match. So let's do that. Open bracket, x minus 2, close bracket, raised to the power of 2, minus 2. It works. It does work. Let's make this graph. Let's change the color. All right, let's make the color red and make it thicker. Good. So you see the minimum point was shifted exactly where I wanted it to be. All right. So in this case, you're given the graph and asked to write the equation of the graph. So it is this. And then of course, if anyone asks you to write it in the form a x squared plus bx plus c, all you do is just expand the brackets. So you have x minus 2, then the -2 at the end. So you have x squared minus 2x minus 2x, which will be -4x plus 4 minus 2. So you would end up with x squared minus 4x plus 2. So that's the graph that you would have. All right, x squared minus 4x plus 2. All right, if I should modify this graph, let me show the label as well, and I erase all of this and write x raised to the power of 2, that's x squared, minus 4x plus 2. Go. It remains where it is because it's the same graph. All right, it's the same graph. Okay, so we'll continue looking at this in a different video.